Chapter 253 to 255. The countless gods of all the planets, the Kai of the North, West, South, and East, the 12 universes supreme Kai, and the gods of destruction. None of them are needed anymore. I'm the only intelligence that need exist any longer, said Alabama Zamasu, whose level of narcissism and psychopathy had exceeded every known limit. But unfortunately for him, he bumped into the sole of his shoe. If you are the only intelligence in the universe, you mean your only recourse relive yourself is to get sucked by a goat? An alligator turtle? Yourself? Yourself? Well, it's quite likely you're a guy who not only team up with himself and fuse with himself to kill everyone other than him and himself. I'll wait, you are born from a fruit. I haven't said anything, said Broly's voice. However, this time his voice didn't ring directly into their brains. Undoubtedly, some sound waves enter his outer ear and travel through the ear canal to the eardrum, transmitted this vibrations to the malleus, incus, and stapes to amplify the sound, send them to the cochlea to create an electric signal that the auditory nerve carries to his brain that turned into Broly's voice. And that means, Broly! Shouted Vegeta, Goku upon seeing the definitive Deus Ex Machina that sometimes turned out to be on their side. That's right, Broly had arrived illegally on Trunks' timeline by unknown means. Broly-san. What are you doing here? No. How did you get here? Shouted Trunks that like Vegeta and Goku had many questions to ask, but since his brain was more developed than that of the two native Saiyans, he had the ability to ask them. That voice. Are you the guy who spoke to me telepathically? Zamasu said upon seeing that new face but familiar voice. Everyone had a lot of questions that hoped Broly could answer, but not only those who were on Trunks' timeline had questions to answer. Again in the usual timeline, everyone was still in front of the screen, enjoying the live broadcast of another timeline. When all of a sudden everyone looked up at the broadcast transmitter with their mouths wide open. Everyone says that the television make you look fat, but I'm perfect. As always, said Broly, who was leering at himself through the screen, as always. Honey. Can you not tell that sort of things when there are children ahead? Bulma yelled as she covered Bra's ears. The girl was already quite precocious, the less exposure to these issues the better. Forget about that, what do you do in the future if Trunks asked Shin, that couldn't ignore this new illegality committed in front of his eyes, although he allowed a few them today. I can be wherever and whenever I want and when I want. In fact, I put one of my bodies in the time machine without anyone noticing, just in case. I wasn't going to leave Trunks and those idiots in the future with a time machine owned by my wife that costs billions. Besides, I was a little worried about them, answered Broly, lying about his true motives and means in a credible way, as always. I see, said everyone that didn't know whether to believe him or not. Or at least which part to believe and which not. Again on Trunks' timeline. Trunks, Goku, and Vegeta were trying to assimilate the situation again. Broly had appeared before them. That would normally have major drawbacks, especially for Vegeta. But given the situation they were in, no one complained about his dangerous and unpredictable presence. HaHaHa, it seems that we are saved, said Goku, that despite knowing that was already 100% sure that he couldn't fight, didn't complain. Although he could fight Zamasu for years, he would be unable to finish him since he didn't know a method to seal him or similar. However, Broly surely had methods to deal with someone like him. Without a doubt, the trio were relieved to have him around this time. However, Trunks was significantly dejected compared to Goku or Vegeta. He had made a deal with Broly and wasn't able to fulfill it. Broly, sorry for. You have done quite well. I'm sorry, my instructions to harden your personality and ability have caused this situation. If you had used all your power from the beginning, surely you would have been able to defeat Black with ease. Although Zamasu is another matter, because you don't know skills to defeat immortals. But don't worry, Daddy Broly is here precisely for that. Let a real man take care of this, Broly said with his usual humility as he materialized armchair, tables, and food for Vegeta, Trunks, and Goku to enjoy the show. Seriously, why did I come here? Said Vegeta and Goku as they ate what had been offered to them. Who are you? Another Saiyan? With 3 eyes? How can be that I don't know anything about you? Asked Zamasu, that didn't understand what was happening. He recently came back from doing his research and never saw that peculiar guy. The only explanation he found is that this guy was so insignificant that wasn't even worth investigating. However, that confident attitude and the way Goku, Vegeta, and Trunks behaved in his presence him didn't seem point to that theory. So, what was happening? Because as a researcher you're a fucking shit, or because if I don't want someone to know about me is unable to know anything about me. It's one of my almost unlimited skills, which I use so that little shits like you don't intrude on my and my family privacy. It even covers traces in the past. I have so many strange abilities, mostly thanks to the world of Medaka box, that once in a while one is surprisingly useful. You get it now, you damn darn frenulums, said Broly, solving doubts, bragging about being the fucking master, displaying information that could compromise him and insulting at the same time. A fairly conclusive explanation, so after ignoring those insults and analyzing the situation, Alabama Zamasu with his usual narcissism and psychopathy said to Broly, I see. I will have to be more careful in the future. If there are more disgusting humans with abilities like these, my plan to eradicate all humanity from all the universes won't be a complete success. That stinky garbage might be able to survive by hiding underground like the insignificant worms that they are. Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. Ha ha ha. Plash. However, Alabama Zamasu couldn't keep laughing like a psychopath, because his head was completely destroyed. Destroyed by a tail/stand hit so fast that he couldn't even perceive. Stop laughing like a cliched psychopathic villain, is fucking embarrassing, said Broly as he shook the blood and guts from his tail. What just happened? Alabama Zamasu asked, very confused instantly after his head was regenerated. Without a doubt he had died and his head had regenerated. But how? Why? When? I have popped your head with my tail as if you were a chimera ant. Be more vigilant from now on when I kill you. I hate to explain these details to the clueless, said Broly, showing great contempt and boredom when talking to Alabama Zamasu, as if he was dealing with an annoying and insignificant being. Something that obviously hurt the pride of the narcissist Alabama Zamasu, therefore he complained, growling. Damn mortal. How you d? Slash. Or at least he tried, since his head separated from his body before he could finish his sentence. Plof. This time I cut your head off using telekinesis. Can you do something similar? I don't think so, Broly said, explaining to Alabama Zamasu the process with which he had died this time. Although this time he waited for Alabama Zamasu's head to regenerate before explaining this. This guy is not normal. Whoever he's very strong. Damn, maybe he's stronger than me, Alabama Zamasu thought, still sweetening reality to his liking. What happened? Are you afraid? Sissy bitch. Can't you do the same? Said Broly, taunting Alabama Zamasu to perform the same feat. GRRJJ. Of course I can do the same. Shouted Alabama Zamasu, who had never felt so insulted and belittled. Of course Alabama Zamasu responded to that provocation. How could he not do? As Kai, one of his characteristic abilities was his powerful telekinesis. The fact that a mortal dared to say that he was more capable in that field than him was an insult that he couldn't allow. Huh. He tried to do something more gore, twist Broly's neck. But. It was impossible. HaHaHa. No matter how much force and pressure he used, Broly's skin, he didn't even flinch. It was like trying to twist a column of reinforced concrete with tweezers made of cotton. Impossible. Shouted Alabama Zamasu, who was almost out of breath after that attempt. What are you doing? You were trying to hold the urge to shit? If you want we can take a little break, said Broly, implying that he hadn't even noticed that Alabama Zamasu applied pressure to his body through telekinesis with the intention of breaking his neck. No way. This is impossible. This is impossible to happen. I'm the greatest god. I'm the most powerful. Alabama Zamasu thought as he tried to process that great insult to his pride and power, what he believed should be happening and what was really happening. All this created in Alabama Zamasu a feeling of utter helplessness and confusion that reactivated his little biting barking dog mode. Prepotent bastard. You think these cheap tricks can scare me? I'm an immortal god, Alabama Zamasu yelled as he charged towards Broly to hit him with all his might in his annoying third eye. Boom. But. Crash. Nanny. Shouted Alabama Zamasu, since before he could even touch Broly his arm was detached from his body, as if it had been run over by a truck. And Broly, without even flinching, grabbed Alabama Zamasu by the head with one hand and said, "Do you think I care about immortal Kais? I'm fucking invincible. And now I will destroy your torso with my little finger." And with a single hit of his pinky to the chest, plaff, his entire body was blown to pieces. Not only did he destroy his torso, but his entire body turned to minced meat. "Oops, sorry, I also destroyed your legs. I thought you were more robust. For a moment I forgot that you were a pathetic Kai." "Ha ha ha ha," Broly said with extreme condescension and malice. Right now everything in Broly was so terrifying that even his allies began to fear for their lives. "Fuck," said Goku, that couldn't believe that a pinky stroke could contain so much force. "What a bastard," said Vegeta, who came to think that neither he in the past nor Frieza together were as motherfuckers as Broly right now. "Monster," said Trunks, terrified of both things at the same time. However, if they were terrified, Alabama Zamasu was even more, so much so that even began to consider the remote possibility that he had overestimated himself. "It's not possible. What's happening? How can you overcome my power in this way now that I am fused with myself?" said Alabama Zamasu, which was subconsciously moving away from Broly while asking that question. His great self-confidence had been completely shattered after those insults and inexplicable deaths, and he hadn't even realized it. "What's happening? It's very simple. That you thought you could do whatever you wanted in a multiverse without HaHaHa's. That you could go anywhere and quench your homicidal and narcissistic instincts without consequence. However, you made a big mistake. And that mistake was killing my alternate wife and allow my alternate stepson to alert us to everything you had done and planned to do. Direct consequence of this? You have summoned the monster who eats HaHaHa's with cereals for breakfast. Me." And he had never been so fucking angry and eager to kill Kais. Broly said as he transformed into true Legendary Super Saiyan, full power beyond due to the extreme rage was experiencing. The power he gave off was so great that even affected the movement of the planet, creating tidal waves and causing several volcanoes to erupt. His killing intent was so dense sinister that the light around him turned gray and the matter decomposed, and of course Alabama Zamasu and all the living beings around Broly began to tremble with fear, even those who observed him in another timeline through a screen, especially Shin. "What's happening to me? I'm shaking? Shaking in fear? Me? A god?" Zamasu thought as he watched, stunned as his legs didn't respond to him, not even to his subconscious that told his body to flee from there. Not even seeing how that monstrosity called Broly approached him and grabbed his head with both hands was he able to move. He was paralyzed, no muscle in his body did what he wanted. "Get this words through your narrow and flattened head. From now on I am your god. A vengeful and cruel god," said Broly while squeezing Alabama Zamasu's head as if it were a stress ball. "Aha. Aha. Noo. Noo. Aha. Wah. Oh wow wah. Plaff. A stress ball filled with blood. On the normal timeline. Inside a wormhole. Beerus and Whis returned from their business trip. In the end, Broly was right. He was not wrong about anything. "I hate it," said Beerus, traveling in the passenger seat, more angry than usual. "You are right, Beerus-sama. He will surely remind us of for years," said Whis, who knew very well what awaited them for years. "It took less time than I thought." That Zamasu proudly confessed everything he planned to do, and even tried to kill his master in front of me. "Did he think that I would let him live with such crimes, or something like that?" asked Beerus, who did not understand that nonsense. Definitely that apprentice Kai was crazy. Perhaps it was a stupid and desperate attempt to convince us that he was doing the right thing and that's why we should not kill him. Or he just blindly believed in his own delusions. Either way, he confessed everything himself. Destruction was his only end, answered Whis, exposing possible interpretations of Zamasu's absurd behavior. An interesting case study, but of irrelevant interest for Beerus and Whis. That crazy criminal was already dead and was of little use to do a psychoanalysis of him, after all they weren't psychologists. There were other things that worried them more. Fortunately, he only became obsessed with Goku. Agra. I get chills just thinking if Zamasu had possessed Broly's body. We have to be grateful that Shin never mentioned Broly and that he did not fight in the blissful Compa tournament. Otherwise, said Beerus, shaking with fear and covered in cold sweat. And he was not exaggerating or pretending, the fact of imagining it crazy and every Broly, well, more crazy and evil, uncontrollably killing all gods and mortals in all the universes and timelines with his unlimited power and crazy abilities spoiled his appetite. On the other hand, he was so relieved that Zamasu became only obsessed with the idiot Goku that didn't even know what god should he think. Yes, though isn't that strange to you? The impact that Broly caused on Shin as a mortal who surpasses the Kais should have been greater than that of Goku. The most logical thing would have been to mention Broly when he wanted to set an example before Zamasu and Gaosu. And the reason why Broly did not participate in the tournament was due to laziness or something else. With everything that has happened, doesn't seem very suspicious that he has motivated Goku to win every fight in the tournament? Said Whis, once again shaking Beerus's tired cat brain. Not again, Whis. I had managed to get rid of that headache. But I agree, once again Broly is a suspect again, said Beerus, who felt that he was trapped in an infinite loop in the worst moment of his life. He had recently been shivering and pouring cold sweat from all his pores at the thought that an evil Broly might want to kill them all. After that he achieved peace of mind when he realized that this would not happen, and now this possibility existed again in his mind. And surely once we investigate those suspicions, we will discover that they have some logical explanation. And that will surely make us wonder again if this is all an incredible coincidence or if Broly had planned everything from the beginning. Even the fact that we find these clues and the clues that contradict the other clues, said Whis, determined not to let his lazy cat enjoy his little victory. GRJJJJRRJJJJJ. We'll ask Shin telepathically later why he didn't mention Broly. As for the tournament, I doubt we will achieve anything, he can make any credible excuse. Said Beerus, as or more depressed than when they went to kill Zamasu a few minutes ago. Because of Broly, even destroying Kais had stopped being fun. Either way. For now, let's pretend not to suspect anything new. Or we better try to forget it. This additional unnecessary worry will get us nowhere. After all, not good to worry about things that you cannot solve or worry about things that have a solution, said Whis, trying to de-stress Beerus. You are the one who created this concern in me. Shouted Beerus, who didn't know if Whis was doing this on purpose or not. Ho ho ho. Whis replied with an irritating laugh, trying to feign ignorance. On the normal timeline. In Broly's makeshift TV theater. Whis and Beerus appeared after their excursion. Oh, they are back. Said Krillin, who always used to be the first to speak. So. Have you eliminated that Zamasu? Asked Ginger. Yes, of course. Who the hell do you think I am? Yamcha asked, who also wanted to feel that he was useful in something. So I was right? Asked Broly while stroking an evil stuffed cat that looked like Beerus, that he prepared for this moment. The moment when Beerus would say certain sweet magic words. Yes, you were right, answered Beerus, feeling completely defeated and hurt as he acknowledged the truth to Broly. Of course I am right. I'm always right, how could I be wrong now? Did you seriously doubt? Said Broly while throwing the stuffed cat in the shape of Beerus in the trash. Speech and symbolic fact that made Beerus mad, but tried by all means to contain his fury. Aish, someday. Here we go again. Said everyone who was not Beerus and Broly. However, aside from this classic episode of domestic quarrels between Broly and his wild cat, everyone there was supposedly watching a live stream of the battle between Trunks, Vegeta, and Goku and Zamasu. Or that was what they had told Whis and Beerus before leaving for Universe 10. However, the fact that Chi-Chi was covering Goten's eyes, Bulma was doing the same with Bra, Muten Rashi with Jinji, C-18 with Marin and Yam, did not do the same with Vegeta Jr., and that the screen was full of censorship. Forced the angel to ask, what are you looking at? To be honest, I think a snuff movie. Answered Bulma, that despite having asked Broly to put censorship, she still did not let Bra look. One more time in Trunks' timeline. Alamaba Zamasu was hyperventilating on the ground when suddenly 1.000.000.000.000 gravity increase. Spash. His body and the earth around him were crushed by a gravitational pulse that practically compacted them to a two-dimensional size. 1, 2. Ah! Shouted Alabama Zamasu after fully regenerating. However, only his body had regenerated, his spirit was still flattened. His morale was as low as his body, which was still kneeling on the ground. It took you 2 seconds to resuscitate, you are improving. Good boy. Broly said while stroking Zamasu's head, treating him like a dog. One more line in the long list of humiliations that Alabama Zamasu had received from Broly in the few minutes that he learned of his existence. Yet this one was so humiliating that kindled Alabama Zamasu's fighting spirit again. "Hey! Die monster!" shouted Alabama Zamasu as he performed a sword hand with the intention of slitting Broly's throat. Now Broly was crouched down with both hands busy stroking his head. It was now or never. Plof. But his hand was stopped by Broly's tail with extreme ease. "You know, the one that taught me this only knew how to apply it to spheres. But I have improved it," said Broly without paying attention to the fact that Alabama Zamasu had tried to kill him, as if he hadn't even noticed. And suddenly, from the hand with which Alabama Zamasu was touching Broly's tail, a strange energy spread throughout his body, which made all of Zamasu's molecules spin at an absurd speed. Crash! 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 Destroying his body in such a bizarre way that even Vegeta was forced to look away. 1, 2, 3. Ha-ha! shouted Alabama Zamasu after fully regenerating again. This time more mentally destroyed than on previous occasions. Ha-ha-ha. I always wanted to try it on someone. It is fortunate to have found such a convenient test dummy. How should I kill you now? This is the problem of having so many options available. You don't know what to choose, Broly said as he took out of his personal dimension a list so long that could even be seen from space. No, not again, gave Alabama Zamasu while trying to flee to avoid another unspeakable death. He had never prayed to anyone being a god, but right now he would love to be able to pray to someone to be saved. I know. Expand you from the inside out, said Broly as he pointed his finger at Alabama Zamasu, who was trying to escape. A futile attempt. Gugwagig. No. Gugwagig. Ufk. Plof. Ha ha ha. Just like a birthday piñata. And now? Wait, let me think. Broly said while checking his list. It was extremely long and the part he was reading was not sadistic enough for his liking. And fortunately that time in which Broly decided his next execution method gave Alabama Zamasu time to regenerate and reflect. This cannot be happening. This is impossible. My plan, my perfect plan. My perfect plan to rid the universe of the plague known as humanity, the greatest cancer that exists, that destroy and infect everything like. A beautiful reflection that was interrupted by Broly, who had already decided how his next death would be. Cut the crap, Zamasu. I'm tired of hearing your poor ridiculous excuses to justify being a fucking trash. I don't give a shit if you really believe it or not, but stop repeating that lie over and over again. A comment that once again hurt the susceptible fanatic. Until now, Broly had hurt him in many ways, but he had never hurt his ideology, and that was something he was not going to allow. So am I trash? You and all other humans are. Every time that I have observed you. You have. However, as Broly warned, he wasn't going to let Alabama Zamasu go on talking nonsense. That's why he warned him with a tail blow that cut his cheek. Splitting his head would be more satisfying, but he didn't want to wait for him to regenerate. Don't yell at me, you fucking child. Don't get me wrong, I'm not debating whether your concept of eliminating humans is justice. It is not necessary to discuss something so extremely stupid. What I'm saying is that you don't really care about that. It's just an excuse to justify your genocide and takeover, just like many other totalitarians before you. Even in that you are not original, said Broly, who was willing to destroy him in every way, physically, spiritually, and argumentatively. In fact, destroying the ideals of others was what he most enjoyed doing. Few things satisfied him more than showing that he is right and that others are not. Are you suggesting that I am lying to myself when I tell the truth? I fight to free all universes from the scum known as humans. Only in this way the true peace will exist. Zamasu said while trying to understand exactly what part of his ideology or actions taken Broly was criticizing, until he thought he found the reason. Oh, I see. Is it for killing the Kais too? Is this the argument that you cling to, say that I lie? Let me tell you, it's not something I wanted to do, but what other option did I have? If I hadn't, those idiots would have tried to stop me from saving all the universes. It is very unfortunate that I had to kill my brothers, but you have to be realistic. You always have to make sacrifices for a higher cause. Their deaths, although tragic, will Slash. But once again, Broly interrupted him when his patience ran out with another blow of tail on the other cheek. Ha 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 ha. You sound just like a fucking shitty communist liberator. Zamasu, 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 despite how vomitive and hypocritical is your excuse that you end justifies your means to justify your genocide of all intelligent life. I didn't even talk about that. In fact, killing the Kais is the only decent thing of all. I mean that your actions speak for you. There is not a trace of that justice or good intentions in all your work, said Broly, who was rolling his imaginary sleeves and warming up all the muscles of his body to start the beginning of the end of the being known as Zamasu. What? If you really wanted to apply your twisted sense of justice effectively without killing any of your brothers, you could have asked the Super Dragon Balls to automatically kill all humans in all universes and timelines at once. However, you didn't. Okay, now you will surely tell me that if you had done that, the Kais would try to resurrect them, or that at least they would repopulate the universes with new mortals. However, you could also ask that all the gods share your ideals, this way you and all the other useless could have joined to kill all the humans together, and you all would have made sure no other human was born again. These were your best ways to carry out your excuse of justice in a painless way and without killing your beloved superior race. But you didn't. And do you know why? Broly asked, as if he were a television lawyer approaching the box of the defendant whom he had asked to testify. However, Alabama Zamasu didn't know what to answer. Both his brain and throat had been paralyzed upon hearing such questions. He couldn't even answer with another nonsense or insult as he had done until now. He didn't even know how to process this alien information. Clasp? Because that's the only thing you are. A fucking, disgusting, sadistic megalomaniac. Broly said with contempt and condescension as he slapped Alabama Zamasu on the cheek to get him out of the trance in which he was immersed. And after coming out of the trance, as he still didn't know what to answer, he resorted to doing the only thing he knew, screaming and taking offense. GRJJJ. What the hell do you know about me? I have. Plump. Crash. But once again his shitty speech was interrupted, this time by a punch to the mouth that completely destroyed all of his teeth. Tell me, why did you steal the body of Goku, the mortal you thought was the strongest? You hate humans, you consider them inferior, you want to kill them, and you still possess the body of one. Aren't you a bit of a hypocrite, considering his sense of justice? What kind of explanation you have for that? Asked Broly again, getting a little closer to Alabama Zamasu in a very intimidating and authoritative way to condition him to respond. And Alabama Zamasu, who already had all teeth and the ability to speak, responded with a trembling voice as he tried to back away. It is obvious, to carry out my plan I need. Clash. Slash. UHHHA. But once again Broly interrupted him. This time moving his jaw with telekinesis to force him to bite out his own tongue. Let's see what's the story of the pedantic Zamasu. Zamasu was a little Kai who was born in Universe 10. Of all the Kais, he was the strongest, the most determined, and perhaps one of the most intelligent as well, although obviously only by illusions. And like all the other Kais who are in the academy, he dreamed of becoming a Kai with a high position and responsibility with which to be recognized by all. Be an important figure at the top of the universe to do important and great things. He was dying to be a Kai of some rank, which are very scarce jobs since there are only 5, but there was no problem, you were the best, it was impossible that they didn't choose you as one of them. Compared to you, the others were trash with no fighting ability or ambition, which is true. And so it was, you were chosen as Kai of the North. You could finally carry out a lot of important tasks, such as sitting all day with the obligation to do nothing while watching humans do whatever they want, said Broly, materializing a book as he sat on the back of Alabama Zamasu and used him as if he were a chair to read it more comfortably. And to make this story more fun. Poof. Broly increased his weight several million times. Akaya. Crushing Zamasu, thus causing minor damage, such as breaking his spine. Zamasu finally understood reality. He had tried so hard for nothing. All his hard effort and excellence among his peers only turned him into a human voyeur, nothing more, nothing else. However, even though you hated your situation, the stupid Kai system, and began to hate the mortals, you still held on. You thought that maybe when by accumulating years of experience in the guild you could do something useful, something worthy of the position you have always dreamed of. But no, even though they made you the next Supreme Kai, the rules were set in stone. Your only function, your only purpose, your only use is to be a spectator. That combat power, intelligence, and ambition that you were so proud of had no use in your great and important work that any other weaker, stupid, and conformist Kai could do. You should only be impassive on your planet drinking tea and looking at humans while the HaHaHa were correcting the imperfections of the universe. Said Broly, closing his book while with telekinesis, was forcing Alabama Zamasu to eat it, with front cover, back cover and bookmarks included. Afjuafafajalftulfja. Tried to say something Alabama Zamasu, as he tried his best to get out from under Broly's hard and heavy ass. That's why your resentment against humans began. You don't actually hate them, you just envy them. You envy those inferior beings who could do whatever they want, while you, technically someone superior to them, could only and should look at them with envy. That's where your inferiority complex began, which your narcissistic self-defense mechanism misunderstood as a superiority complex, and that false superiority complex turned into hatred and resentment towards what you envied, so much so that you made up excuses to kill them all like the sadistic son of a bitch that you are. And of course, that false superiority complex betrayed itself as soon as you found out about Goku, a mortal who was far more powerful than you would ever be, said Broly, who began to feel uncomfortable with his new chair, was tilted, raised and moved abruptly without pressing any button. And that was because Zamasu, using all his energy and willpower, was trying to escape from that painful and degrading position. That's why. Boom. 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 Plasf. Ugh. Broly made his limbs expose so that his chair returned to the perfect position, at ground level, eating sand. Until now the charade in your mind remained solid because you hadn't found or didn't know that there are humans superior to a Kai. Okay, maybe they could do whatever they wanted and you could just stare at them without doing anything, something that was torture and a degradation for you. Why should I do this? Fuck. I am the strongest Kai. I'm overqualified to play this shitty role. But it didn't matter, you were still superior to them despite that, everything was still fine. Being a Kai is the best, and specifically being you, the most powerful Kai, was the best of the best. They were weak and idiotic, but free to do whatever they wanted, and you were strong and intelligent, but limited to your role. Something unacceptable, but that you could still tolerate, after all you were still above them in everything. However, what happened when you discovered the first mortal who was stronger than you? Exactly, you couldn't take it anymore. Therefore you envied his power and freedom and wanted to become him, Broly said as he got up from his uncomfortable and stinky chair, with which he wasn't satisfied at all. Finally, thought Alabama Zamasu with joy, finally he could stop dying from suffocation and internal bleeding endlessly. But most important of all, he would stop feeling so humiliated after being relegated to furniture ohno. Plaf. However, it was a false alarm. Broly had only gotten up to reposition his pants. And from there, having everything you ever wanted, you allied with the only being that a megalomaniac who thinks he's the best could, yourself. With one who didn't possess Goku to keep what you had lost by your side, you aren't a conformist person, really. Then the story is known to all, you started killing humans. I will insist. You could have made a wish to the Super Dragon Balls to do that for you, a death without pain and without having to stain your hands too much. A ruthless, inconceivable, barbaric and cruel act, but that you could still justify from the perspective of your supposed justice by choosing the fastest, most effective, efficient, clean and painless way to achieve that peace you long for. But you didn't do that, you chose the most inefficient and cruel way possible, going to each planet and killing them with your own hands one after another with cruelty, laughing while you ended their lives. You just wanted to kill humans for fun, because you were just a disgusting sadist. You wanted to submit to death what you once envied, Broly said as he heated his chair to several million degrees. It was a little cold at this time and he didn't want to catch a cold. FFFFR. Triple A. AA. Aha. Alabama Zamasu screamed in agony as he charred and melted at the same time. And I will insist. You could have used the Super Dragon Balls to convince the other Kais that your excuse of shitty justice was correct and thereby avoid killing them. But you didn't, you killed them all as soon as you could until not one was left. And do you know why? Because you are a resentful person who couldn't forgive those who imposed the rules on you that you didn't like. You didn't even forgive those who followed them the rules, who simply sympathized with them, that didn't agree with your point of view or simply because they seemed to be suspected of not thinking like you. Because you are a megalomaniac who believed himself superior to all Kais and therefore also had to disappear like humans, other inferior beings. And obviously you killed them with your bare hands because you are a sadist, although you didn't kill the HaHaHa directly because you are a powerless coward. I will repeat myself, you are a genocidal, envious, and false scum whore whose only objective was to be at the top by himself, although in order not to be alone you ally yourself with yourself, and make up a poor excuse to justify how scum you are. You are just a pathetic being without any virtue. God? You are no different from a lesser demon, Broly said while freezing his chair to absolute zero. It was too hot for his liking. Crack. 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 Crash. A chair that broke into small ice shards, just like the self-image that Zamasu had built lying to himself. It was an unanswerable truth. Zamasu, he's just trash. After that, in the usual timeline, everyone was still hooked on TV like never before. Wow. Everyone sighed after witnessing that shocking and atrocious spectacle. None of those present, including angels who had lived almost as long as the universe, gods of destruction who destroyed planets on a whim, ex-genocidal psychopath scions, ex-killer androids, ex-corrupt martial artist, a hardcore pervert, Bulma, Bra, and a normal cat. None of those evil beings had ever seen someone destroy a person at so many levels. I think that speech has hurt him more than anything he has done so far. Yamcha, who knew perfectly the feeling of someone exposing all his flaws one by one in the most cruel and ruthless way possible. After all, he had lived countless couple breakups. And that's considering he have done things I'll have nightmares for years. Said Beerus without exaggerating in the least. What he had seen was horrible. It isn't ruled out that it could happen to him in the future, and he sleeps for many years in one go. Again in Trunks' timeline. Alabama Zamasu, just like a disgusting cockroach with the Wolverine gene, resurrected again. However, the sparkle in his eyes lit by his delusion of grandeur seemed to have disappeared. It was as if something in the immortal Alabama Zamasu had died forever. He seemed to be in a vegetative state. Anyway, enough talk for now. Fortunately, Dr. Broly was there to give him all his moral support and help him overcome his depression. Yay! Stop daydreaming. We have a few minutes left before your fusion is over. And remember, we have a very long list to complete, said Broly, grabbing Alabama Zamasu by the hair so they could talk at the same height, while looking at him with an extremely sinister expression. An expression so sinister that managed to get him out of the existential crisis in which he had sunk to welcome him to a much worse hell. If you want to support me, check out my Patreon at https://www.patreon.com/Kaioshin. I tend to polls that decide important plot stuff in my P at Trian. Many thanks to my awesome patrons. Ben Phillips. If you liked the content, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. I'll stay here until next time.